we put our heads together. We saw a massive opportunity there, and we thought we want to turn, cryotherapy, which was at the time, people were very unaware of it, wasn't very educated about it. It felt very, alien, very like ununderstandable, very medicinal, like I said, and we wanted to turn that into like a lifestyle brand.
Welcome back, guys, to another amazing episode of the FitBiz Journey podcast. Today we are here in New York City and I have Ben Feinson, CEO of Cryo Fuel. It's an amazing cryotherapy studio where they're doing more than just cryo. We will talk about it in a minute, but I really wanted to have him on board because I actually went to his location and I was very impressed of his employees, of the place, how clean it was. And then there was nothing hanging around. Everything was put away. Everything was really clean. And as soon as I walked in, I didn't have any appointments whatsoever. I just literally walked in, and his employees right away, there was two basically right up front. They right away helped me out. They asked me what I want. Of course, not like that. Very nicely. They were very friendly, very cool, and it's really important, especially in New York City, because in New York City, I don't know about you, Ben, but anywhere I go, I won't say they are rude, but they don't really treat you as they should because there's so many other clients, I guess, they could get and have. But anyways, I'm sorry, guys, I already took over a little bit. But with any further ado, let's meet, please, Ben. So let's just go ahead and get started with, how did you get even started with Cryo Fuel, and then why in the United States?
So I originally had a personal training company back in London. I was a personal trainer for about 8 years, I think, before I moved out here, around that. I guess, done everything in that industry that I wanted to do. I got to a point where I'd saved a bit of cash, I felt like I couldn't really see much growth in that industry anymore, apart from opening, my own studio, which at the time I didn't have the funds for. I didn't have any backing or anything like that. So I started to look into, different avenues within the same sector, within health and wellness. So I actually got introduced to cryotherapy by my sister, who lives here. And at the time there was only one location in London, which was really random at the top of a shopping mall. Very odd. So I tried it there and it was amazing, and I couldn't believe I'd never heard of it, especially because it was, again, within our industry, within health and wellness. I told my sister about my experience and stuff. She then found a place here and did the same thing. She went and tried it. Again, it was in a very random spot in Midtown, 14 floors up. I don't remember the name of the location. I'm not going to name it, but it wasn't, the most amazing space ever, or brand or company or anything like that. They just, were a very early adopter in it. But it was very, I would say, medicinal, So, we put our heads together. We saw a massive opportunity there, and we thought we want to turn, cryotherapy, which was at the time, people were very unaware of it, wasn't very educated about it. It felt very, alien, very ununderstandable, very medicinal, like I said, and we wanted to turn that into a lifestyle brand. And then the reason we done it here is just because, you probably agree, is that health and fitness is way ahead here in America, let alone New York or LA is much further ahead than the UK, in my point of view.
No, I 100% agree. Yeah, New York is definitely the place, and I just want to add to that what you just said about what you have mentioned, that it wasn't as cool as you would think it would be, to a new location to go into a cryo place. And I can tell you guys that the cryo places that I actually went to, I think that was the first thing that I told you, that, wow, this place is spotless. Yeah. Because in general, I was expecting what I already have wired in my mind, just like some of the people when they go to a gym, they think that it's going to smell like crap and it's going to look like dark and all that kind of stuff, Yeah. So I had it wired in my mind when I'm going to go into your place, that it's going to be just like the other cryo place, which is kind of smells in there, and kind of there's water on the floor, puddles because of the hydrogen tanks, right, and all those things. And then no, couldn't even tell that it's even a cryo place because it was so nice. So that was cool to to see. For
a lot of people think we're a coffee shop sometimes.
Yeah, see, exactly.
Which is a bit random.
Yeah, but that's a good thing. That's a good compliment to have, and especially in New York. But by the way, is there more cryo places even in New York City, or there's only just a handful? Or
there's probably like, in terms of solely cryotherapy places, there's probably 7 or 8, and there's probably 15 to 20 people giving out cryotherapy. These might be within gyms or private spaces or something like that. But in terms of like a space that is solely for cryotherapy, there's probably 8 to 10 now.
Got it.
So it's definitely growing and becoming more familiar, especially here in New York.
Yeah, got it. And then how long ago was that when you opened actually?
2 years.
2 years ago. And then how did you pick the one location down there in technically Soho, right?
Honestly, it was pure luck. Again, opportunity, I would say. So we actually originally wanted a location more around here in West Village / Soho, and the landlord turned us down, first of all. And it was my sister's trainer at the time that saw the space. So I think he visited a place called Dog Pound, a gym. And then round the corner is where we are. And he just walked past the space and was like, there's a gym right here. This space is, ground floor, shop level, front of house. And it just made a lot of sense, for us.
So now let's say for the people who are listening, now you got your space. I assume it was empty, right?
It was an art gallery before.
Okay,
yeah.
Art gallery. Oh, you guys are already pretty good, right? Yeah. Kind of good shape. But how much work was it to get it open? Was it rough? Was it okay to do, or?
It was pretty rough. I'm sure you've experienced this before. Your construction team tells you a date, and you've just got to take that with a pinch of salt, and it's normally about 2 months later than that. So originally we was meant to open in, like February, March, and we didn't open until July. So it was quite a lot of work though. We completely remodeled the actual front of the shop. It's all glass now, whereas before it was just a wall, and the entrance was a side door. Now the entrance is off the street, off the pavement.
And did you plan on that it might go wrong like that? Did you have a separate budget, or you were like freaking out that?
We planned for it to go wrong, but obviously it just gets frustrating at any point when the date keeps getting pushed back, and then it's something that is hard to judge. You don't know how faithful and trustful your construction team's going to be the first time you work with them, but when they keep telling you a date and then you start setting up marketing and scheduling and trying to bring people in, like influencers or influential people or something like that, it becomes frustrating on that point.
And a nightmare.
When you keep like telling these people, I'm so excited to take you here and to show you this and to do this, and then you keep pushing that date back on that person. So it's just like you've got to roll with the punches a bit, and I guess next time I would probably wait until I can physically see that it's actually ready before I start pushing hard on like influencers and marketing and those strategies.
Did you have to pay rent while it was still going on or late? Yeah, so that sucks, guys. So the only reason I wanted to bring this up because a few people reached out to me that we opened the studio really quickly here, and they were like, how did you do that? And then because there were some people who started construction like 3 months before we started this one and we opened already, and they were like, yeah, and that sucks. I mean, you have went through it, I have went through it before, we all experienced it, but guys, that's just the worst. When you think it's gonna open, let's say in January, and you open up in like June, you're gonna like, oh man, so what now? So that's why I always recommend that when you open a studio, make sure there's some gap, because there's the people call it the hold the shit account. Almost like to make sure that you can cover those losses. So
I agree with that. I think like if you do your own cash flow sheet, you might have someone who does it for you, but if you do like a daily cash flow sheet, I would say, and I'm sure you would agree, is to always, make it as bad as possible. Don't try and make it look really nice so it looks like you're going to earn loads of money at the end of the month. Make it look as worse as it could be.
Exactly.
It would be my advice.
I always recommend that. Two things is I have learned it now both ways, because I have experienced both. Like one is horrible start, right? Way worse than I expected. That could be really bad. So what you just said, 100% do it. And then the upside, which could be just as bad for you, is if you like plan it that, okay, so we're gonna be like, let's say right here, but what if for some reason, somehow it actually will be here? and then you can't fit in the people, it's just as bad actually as when you don't have people to fit in. And we experienced both, and I can't tell you, but I think that, well, it's cool when at least you have X amount and you made money, but then you have lose so many people because you can't fit them in, and we experienced that. So that sucks. So both of the ways, I would experience the best case scenario. How would it look like? What's the contingency plan for that? And then also the worst case scenario too. It's both just as important. But
yeah, no, I agree.
But one, you completely go out of business if you don't do it right. The other is just like, you know what to do if you get there.
Yeah.
Anyways, so let's say now it's open. What was your next step when you actually finally opened the doors? I'm sure you were excited as hell. How did you have a marketing team helping? Did you bring in influencers like you mentioned, or what was?
Yeah, so we had we'd done a lot of reach out, like 2 to 3 months before we'd even opened. So we had already reached out to a lot of people within the industry. We had luckily we had a close network of people that we knew here already, like good friends who are in the health and wellness industry. So they helped us out a bit as well in terms of hyping it up, telling people that they knew about it. So we had all of that scheduled, but we did that all internally, you know. And a lot of it was about education.
So but they don't know what it is.
Exactly, yeah. It's just getting people to understand what cryotherapy actually was and why it's beneficial for them, you know. Because most people was just had no idea what it is, and people still have no idea what it is. So and then so you brought in some people, they came in, and then I assume you basically had a setup plan of what it looks like month 1, month 2, month 3, and then you basically just executed, right? Have you ever, because I hear it all the time, have you ever questioned your plans, or you were like, all right, this is it, we're just going to execute now? Yeah, I mean, I still question my plans now.
Of course,
I still question everything I do. Yeah, I think, you know, it's so cliche, but it's go with your gut at the end of the day. You know, the first thing you think, you know, there's a really interesting book called Start With Why, you know, and it's the Golden Pyramid with Simon Sinek, and he speaks a lot about, you know, about following your gut instinct, which is actually part of your brain, and normally it's the right decision for you. And, you know, not every decision's always going to be right, and you will get it wrong, but then again, so cliche, you learn from your mistakes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I always say this, I add to that why I love that book, by the way, but is that technically you only fail if you actually stop trying.
Exactly.
So as long as you learn from it and not making the same mistake, you will be all right.
Yeah.
And what do you think, what would be since you opened now, what would be your number one challenge that you have faced, and then how did you overcome that challenge?
I think the biggest challenge we faced was more than one challenge. I think continuous traffic, because we're in obviously I haven't explained where our location is. Our location is, you've been there, is, I wouldn't consider it the middle of nowhere, but it's very far on the West Side Highway where there is not a lot of foot traffic. You know, we're not in a residential area, I would say. It's a very odd location. So we don't get much foot traffic. So everything that we get is through, you know, some sort of marketing plan that we're doing, some sort of education that we're doing, some sort of event that we've been to or hosted. So it's just driving traffic into the business with, you know, we haven't got a huge budget or a huge marketing spend. So trying to find low cost options, you know, that can drive a lot of traffic into the business. So that is a big challenge. You know, you can't give away all your secrets about what you do. Another challenge is, you know, staying relevant. You know, because when we first opened, we only had whole body cryotherapy and infrared sauna, you know, which we no longer have. So something that we try and do is always to stay ahead of the game, you know, using the best technologies to get the best results possible. So we're always bringing in new treatments, you know, some that do work, some that don't work, and if they don't work, we get them out fast and we bring in the next one. And everything that we do is something that, you know, is tried and tested by us, that we think will be beneficial to, you know, our audience and our clientele, who we know pretty well right now.
Now, what would be one recommendation to someone who would start right now a fitness studio or a cryotherapy studio? If you could go back in time and you meet somebody or even yourself, what would the number one thing that would tell that person what to do or what not to do?
I think, you know, something that I struggled with at the start was I would get very anxious and I would get very emotional about a lot of decisions. I think, you know, taking a step back, realizing that, you know, obviously it's very important, especially if it's your money in the business, you know, if it's your livelihood, but sometimes it's like, you know, this is just work at the end of the day, you know, and don't get me wrong, obviously I love what I do, I love running a business and stuff, but there's much more important things in life, you know, in my opinion, like my health, you know, and feeling good and being happy. That sometimes it would just, I would get into like a pretty deep hole sometimes, you know, and get pretty, I would say, depressed about it, you know, about certain things that weren't going right, and I just couldn't figure it out or understand why it's not working. So I would say, you know, just to remember there's more to life than, you know, trying to make loads and loads of money.
And I'm pretty sure, exactly, and I'm pretty sure now you also understand or experienced it too. I did it myself as well, that if something like that happens or it makes you challenge you from the inside, then you also realize that you can, is that the right word, duel?
Yeah.
Like over it or and over every day.
Yeah.
But the end of the day, once you finally get over it, you get back to what you're supposed to do and move on. But the point is, the sooner you can actually get out of that, the better for you, because at the end of the day, you still have to continue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it doesn't do any good for you, but just like you said, it's tough. And then that's a good point to tell anybody and yourself, because at the end of the day, you still have to continue on no matter what, even if you lose a leg. I mean, hopefully that never happens, but saying that something like that happens, it sucks, but the business is already a living organism and it has to continue on unless you decide to close it down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, you know, be upset, obviously. I'm not saying don't be upset, but it's like, be upset, get over it, and move on. You know,
that's the perfect formula, guys.
Which is something that you know, I learned and try and move forward with now.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, cannot tell you anymore. And you also have, well, you have a puppy, right?
Yes.
The reason I'm saying is because technically you have a family.
Yeah.
And do you have any kids?
No kids.
Okay. So the reason I'm just saying is because, like you said, there's more to life.
Yeah.
So obviously take care of each other and everything, and don't basically just go 100% on business, because eventually life needs to happen.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's like, you know, you don't want to be so overwhelmed by your company that you forget about all your friends and family and the things that, you know, do really truly matter.
And don't forget that I love when people say this, that I don't work for money, I work for freedom. Because when you have money coming in already and you got it, then you technically, that's not what you get. Like, all right, I have all this money. You have all the freedom to do whatever you want to do.
Exactly.
And that's actually really cool.
Yeah, that's what they say, true wealth is freedom.
Exactly.
You know?
And time.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And any last bit of advice that you would give away to any of our audience that you could
always
think of?
read. Continue reading, continue learning. You know?
Perfect. That's my number one advice too, actually, when I get interviews. Yeah.
It really does make a difference.
Sharpen the saw. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just that, I don't know if you guys know this, or I don't know if you know this, but you might know this, but did you know that your brain, actually 95% of our thoughts are the same exact thoughts every single day. Even though we think about something different, it's always about the same thing, 95%. But when you read, you stimulating something completely different. And that's why people who read books or listening to podcasts or watching like educational stuff, it challenges them to think outside of that 95%. Almost like it's called, that's where the saying comes, think outside of the box.
Yeah.
Because only that 5% is the different that you think about something else that day. So if you're reading, you're already challenging your thought process and you start thinking differently. And I led a whole research about this and I was blown away, and it made sense because when I wasn't reading, our business stalled, right? And then when I start reading, if I ask anybody how we blew up so fast and went from like 1 studio to like 6, like very quickly, for only like a year, then everybody, if you would ask at the team, they would say, well, it just started when you started to read, because then you were like, just, know what to do. But anyways, not like that, but meaning like they would connect it to the actual reading.
What's your favorite book?
Right now I don't have like a single favorite book. But
what book would you recommend? One book you'd recommend?
Well, first of all, Start with the Why was one of them. But Key Person of Influence is KPI. It's nothing like a really crazy or well-written book. It's just a very easy to read book, but it's basically about branding, and it shows you how to become a key person of influence of your circle and industry and your area. And I've been using that at all of our locations, and it's been working really good for me. So I would definitely recommend to anybody to read that.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then of course, number one for any business, if you haven't read it, you should pick this up, is Profit First.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
You should read it. It's really good.
It.
It's a really good book, and guys, it might save you tons of money and make you lots of money. Yeah,
that's what they want.
And it's not a boring book. It's one of those books. It's by Michael Michalowicz, who also wrote The Pumpkin Entrepreneur and Clockwork and lots of awesome books. But the point is, that book, the Profit First, I thought it's gonna be like accounting book or something like that. No, it's really entertaining, and you can read it in like a few hours, and you're gonna be like, wow, I know what to do now. Yeah, that's how I was when I read it. Yeah, it's really awesome. Cool. I highly recommend it.
That's awesome, man.
Anyways, so thank you so much for coming by. Where can people find you right now?
They can find me on Instagram, which is at Benjamin Feinson. That's BenjaminFeinson. And
we'll link it in.
It's a long one, and that's that's the only thing I'm really active on.
Okay.
Or if you go to Cryo Fuel on Instagram, so CRYOFUEL.
And then, is there anything in the works for you right now? Something cool or something that you want to share that you're either promoting or working on?
I am working on a coffee company or a coffee product.
Oh, really?
Which would be called Bittersweet, but it's in the very early stages right now.
Is it going to connect it with the current one, or is something completely separate?
It's something completely separate.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
I love coffee.
So it's basically a direct-to-consumer subscription model.
Got it. Okay.
But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that sounds really good, guys. Stay tuned, because we might create a separate podcast just about that eventually, as it comes to fruition.
So. Yeah, I hope so.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. Make sure if you're just listening, it's also obviously on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, IGTV. You can find us everywhere. And then if you're listening to this, then just make sure to share it to somebody who could use this information. I think Ben gave us some awesome info on what to do if something bad happens, something good happens, how to prepare, how to keep going, and how to have an actual plan to make sure you're able to move on and have a successful life and business. So thank you again.
Thanks,
Appreciate it. Yeah.